Hey guys, and welcome to how to paint a Death Jester for Eldari Harlequins in Warhammer 40k. Alright, so today we're going to be doing a full tutorial on this one. You know, in the past I did the Hobby Tips video on the blue to pink blend, which I'll put a link in the top right hand corner here and in the description for if you want to check that one out. But I got a lot of comments on the full color scheme, so today we're going to go through that and do the full color scheme. It's a lot of neutral blacks, a lot of these kind of colors, dark colors, etc. And that's there to sort of reduce the level of noise or detail in the model so that we can focus on a main blend or a main color, in this case the blue to pink blend on the cape. And it's just a way to speed things up and get an army painted. Well, that's the intention anyway. And you know, Harlequins can be very difficult to paint if you want to go the freehand route and do a lot of those sort of the patterning details on the clothes and so on, and on the armor and all that sort of thing. So this is just a way to sort of do Harlequins in a slightly different manner. They still give you a nice flamboyant, you know, bright colored look, but without all of that extra detail, which I think is good if you're looking towards a more gaming focused army. Then that's a nice way to do it, and I think it'll be pretty fun. So I'll stop waffling on now, and I think we should get started, eh? All right, so to begin with, we're going to do the base, and the reason for that is that we want to get that out of the way so we don't sort of overpaint onto the figure, because you got the boots there and the cloak, and if you do this later in later steps, you'll probably end up painting those areas that you've already painted. So to keep this clean, we're going to do that first. And you know, I've done this many times on the channel, so most people that have watched my videos have seen this before. But basically, we're going from a dark grey and then dry brushing up through lighter greys, and you'll see this as I go through it. I'll be doing the Necromancer cloak and then going up through dungeon grey, uniform grey, and then white. And for the dry brushing steps, I'm not cleaning out the brush through the dungeon grey, uniform grey, and white, and that influences each color before it, so you get a more harmonious dry brush over the top. And we're going right up to that white. It'll end up being more like an off grey color. And then once all that's sorted out, I go through with the Lamia medium mixed in with the sepia and the Biltan shades and create a sort of green and brown kind of mix there, and just go around and just dab it everywhere and create a sort of just a mottled color map over the surface of that gray, just to give a bit of life and a bit of vibrance there, so it's not just like a flat gray base, like ashen base. And then finally, just because we've got a lot of purple and so on in the figure, I've then gone through and used the violet shade mixed with Lamia medium just around the base of the ruin there, just to add a little pop of purple coming through, so it sort of ties the base to the model. And now we're into that blue-pink blend. So we're starting with that night blue, and we're just doing a base coat on the cloak. And anywhere else that you want to do this blend on, in this case, we're just doing it on the cloak. We're going to leave areas for the blue highlighting later, but for the first step, we're just basing that. And any other areas we're going to use to highlight for other colors, like the weapon, I'm using that as a base for our metallic areas. And on the back of the cloak, that sort of shawl area, that sort of tassel-y spot, I'm also using that as a base highlight for that as well. But it's up to you how much you want to do here. And once that's done, now we're moving into the main blend. So we've got that Warlock purple mixed with the blue to create a dark purple, and we're going to start by just blending that down the robes. And we're sort of doing about 3/4 down, so we're leaving the top areas to come in with our blue later on. And so you're just building in that color and getting a nice deep purple starting to come through. And then the next one after that, we're moving into more of the Warlord purple, or that mid-tone purple in there, but a little bit lighter color now, and that's working into our first sort of main layer color. So you're probably using a slightly smaller brush here, and you're just going through and lining in those lines down the robes to start bringing in that main sort of purple pink color. And so once we've established a good look there, and again not going all the way up to the top, we're leaving small areas at the top there for where we bring in our blue highlights. And so once that's sorted out, then you're getting into your main, I guess, mid-tone, which is now moving into a highlight, and that's that straight Warlord purple color, or a similar one. And so you're going to use that now as your highlight. So dropping down a brush and moving into that main highlight step. So you're just building in that nice Warlord purple color and feathering it in. You'll see me feathering it, and that's just going to establish a really nice base for when we bring in those pink colors. So now that we've got that sorted, now we're looking at the real real highlight steps of this, and there's quite a few here because you really do need to blend it up. And so we're using that squid pink and that warlord purple, and just creating a sort of off pink color, which is just a little bit lighter than the one before it. And you're starting to use a fine detail brush here and just lining in those highlights and getting that down so you get some nice sharp highlights in. And once you've sorted that out, then we move into an off pink color, which isn't quite the full squid pink. It's just a little bit darker. And you're moving down the line, so you're not highlighting the whole line as you did before. Now you're moving down. You'll see me hitting sort of 3/4 of the line down the robes to get that nice pink color coming in. And once you're happy with that result and you move around the model and do all those areas, now we're moving into straight pink, and this is really just to bump that pink color and give you a stronger sense of pink coming through. And it's one of those things where it's artistic license, how much you want to do pink to how much you want to do purple to blue. And so but you're just building it down towards the ends. That's the main thing. And so once we've got that sorted out, now we've got a couple of steps of sort of almost spot highlights here. So the next one is with white added in, and what you're trying to do here is really just lock in some bright areas. So picking the corners of the robes, anywhere where it comes to a point, and you're just going to be building in some light color here. So there's a lot of really great edges on this model, so it's very easy to do that. But you'll see me just come in and just pick out those areas, and it's a bit broader than a spot highlight. And then finally, once we've established that kind of look, now we're looking for those really sharp points where we can put a spot highlight. And so this is more white added in, and so you're now just going around with your fine detail brush, and you'll see me do it, just picking out the very pointed areas on the edges of the robe. So at the corners, the top peak of that collar behind the head, anything like that where you just want to get that really white hot spot highlight, and you'll get a nice real vibrance there, and that's going to give you the full contrast. Because this is a character. If this was one of your battle line troops or your basic units, you might not go as high as this, but because it's a character, we want to add a little bit more punch to it and give it the sort of the care and attention that you want for your HQ. And then finally, we want to do the blue and connect those highlights at the top of the cape and anywhere where you've left for those blue highlights. So we've mixed up about 3 tones there. And again, it's the same process as the purple and the pink, just blending up with a fine detail brush. And you'll notice as you get to the lighter colors of that light blue, the white mixed in with the blue there, that it'll start to just blend and link to the lighter tones that you put down, the pinks, as the values are very similar. And so you get that magical thing where the color transitions, but the highlights are continuous. And so that's what we're trying to do here, and that will give you a really nice result. And now we're on to the pants and the jacket sleeves. So we're starting with the black areas, and I'm using a neutral black here, just because we want to have that push back in the background so that the colors come forward. We're going to contrast that with a warm tone for the bone white areas. So we're starting out with this sort of neutral, which will read as a cool color. And so you'll see me go around with black mixed in with that necromancer cloak, and just start to establish the main highlight lines on that one side of the leggings and the sleeve, and so alternating sleeve. And so we're just sort of establishing that with a larger brush and getting some light there. And once that's down, you'll see me come in now with straight necromancer cloak and do the same thing again, just reinforcing those lines on those alternating leggings and sleeve, and just establish a little bit of light coming through. And once we've decided how much of that we want to add, now we move into the main sort of highlight colors, and we're using that dungeon gray, which is a lighter gray than the necromancer cloak, and we're starting to use a fine detail brush here and just picking out the raised areas on those the leggings and the sleeve, and just to create a little bit more light. And again, it's up to you how much you want to make this gray to black. So with blacks, the tighter the line, the more black it's going to seem. The thicker the lines as you highlight up, the more gray it's going to be. So it's entirely up to personal choice how much you want to do. But from there, we move into the uniform gray, and this is a slightly lighter tone. And what we're doing here is we're just establishing a little bit more light. It's only just lighter than the dungeon grey. And so you just want to just line that in with a fine detail brush, hitting those raised areas where the light is hitting from above, coming down. You know, you imagine that as you're painting it. And then once we've got a good lot of that down, then we move into the uniform grey mixed with white. And this is our first real sort of you know, punchy little highlight color, which is going to really bring out some of the edges. And so you got to be careful with this, not too much, otherwise I said it'll go more to a grey tone. So nice and sharp, very fine, and just hitting the very tops of the knee, you know, down the side of the legging, up on top of the elbow, etc. Just the spots where the light is really going to hit. And then finally, once you've got that sorted out, then we move into the spot color. And here we're just adding more white in, and you're just hitting those main spots where the light is going to hit, or where there's a corner or a spot where the highlighting meets, just to give a bit more punch for that black. And so now we're on to the white areas, or the alternating sleeve and legging. And so I've chosen for a warm tone, but I'm using the Ushabti bone from GW mixed with black to give you a warm cream color. Now you can do any number of whites or any different blends here. I just chose a warm tone just to contrast against the more neutral or cooler tone on the alternating black, but it's entirely up to you. So for this one, we're just mixing in black with the Ushabti, and you'll see me just setting up that gradient and moving through, going from the darker tone there, and then moving through you know, a couple of steps up towards Ushabti. So a mid-tone there, and then into Ushabti. And once you've hit that Ushabti color, that's the sort of main, I guess, color of those pants. And so that's hitting the broadest areas and giving you your first established, I guess, broad highlight across the tops of the legging and the sleeve. And then once you've got all that organized, then we move into the final highlight colors, and we're going quite sharp here to sort of get a very you know, contrasted look on these pants. So we're hitting it with white mixed in with the Ushabti and getting a nice fine highlight, and just going around and just dabbing that in on the top surfaces. You don't have to go all the way around. We're not highlighting the entire area from top to bottom. We're just doing the tops. And so once we've hit that, then we move into white mixed in with more of the Ushabti, and we've got a brighter tone there, and that's a real sharp fine highlight, and almost a spot highlight. And so you'll see me just go through and just hit those areas and bring out a bit more light. And then finally, like we've done with all the other areas, you've got to do that spot highlight. It's tedious, and we go through these steps, but it really does help, and it's especially around the face, the focal point. You really want that. So just adding in more white there, and then just hitting those key spots across the top of the sleeve and then around the knee and the leg there, just to really make that pop and give you a nice contrast against the black on the alternating side. And you should have a really good result. And now we're doing that back sort of tassel-y, I don't know, shawl area of the cave. I'm not really sure what to call that, but just the back area that I've decided to do a different black tone. So we've already hit that with some dark blue, and now we're coming in with these blue grays. So you're going to see that gradient there, and we've got that sort of dark blue gray, and then mixed in with some of that pale gray to get the next tone up, and then a third one after that, which is sort of like your mid-tone, and then finally a highlight color mixed with white. And so you're just going through the motions once again, building up very fine, sharp highlights. Again, when you're doing black, what you're really wanting to do here is to keep everything sharp and thin, and that gives the broadest areas the black there, and that's going to read as black. The broader that shading and highlights are, the more grey it seems. So we do want to keep this as black as possible. You know, we're doing an edgy Death Jester. We want to you know, keep it in theme and have that nice rich black there to contrast against everything else that's going on. So we just go through and build up those layers and get those nice little highlights on the edges. This one is pretty easy to do. It's only just, you know, they're almost like triangles. So you're just hitting each side of the triangle and across the top of the arm there and a few other areas, but it's pretty quick to do this one. And now it's time to hit that focal point. So we're doing the head and that sort of rib cage area, and we're using that night blue and white, and we're creating 4 little tones there. So, or actually 5, a darker one, and then a sort of slightly lighter blue, and then a lighter blue again, and then 2 lots of sort of highlight blue colors mixed with white. And so successive layers of white. So, you know, it's very similar to what we did on the cape. We're just going a little bit brighter here so we can get a bit more punch, because this is the focal point of the model. So we want to really establish a nice dark to light contrasted look to really draw the eye to that area of the model. So we've got that slightly darker color first, and you'll see me just building up. Again, this is exactly the same process as the cape and all the other areas. You'll notice that this repeats itself over and over again, because that's just the basic you know, practice of painting. You're building up layers and highlights and so on. So we're just building in those first couple of layers across the tops of the rib cage and the face, across the T section, you know, the jawline, etc., and building up to those last 2 brighter tones. And they're your fine line highlight step, and then finally that last one is your spot highlight, just for around the T section, around the face, very, very small spots of white light, just to help draw the eye to the face and make that the focus. All right, now for the medals. Now this is a really fun bit for me. I really enjoy doing this. You'll see it a lot on the channel. Like a lot of my minis use this dark metal color. It's just a great way to you know, get a bit of speed in your color scheme, you know, because it doesn't take very long to do. It can be really painterly, really messy. You'll notice I'm not worried about any of the mark making. I'm trying to actually emphasize that more and create a lot of dark and lights. This is kind of like a really messy version of non-metallic metal done with metallic. You know, you're looking for big contrasts around those rounded forms, very painterly, just applying it, hitting the tops of those areas, almost like a dry brush, but you're using a wet paint on a bigger brush, and just going through and using that dark bronze color, and then going up through into Runelord brass, and then finally into the silver, just a little bit of influence with that brass color, so it's not quite a full silver. And the only step where I'm going to come down in the brush will be that last stage, where I want to do some fine, sharp highlights across the main edges of the weapon and so on, any other areas that I'm going to do with this metal. And it's very, very quick. You're thinking big contrast, you know, between the blue, the undertone of the blue that's there, moving through that sort of red, dark bronze color, and then moving into that Runelord brass, and then up into the silver. And you'll end up with a really great result. It'll seem messy at first, but as the paint settles, as it dries, and as you get those highlights down in a nice big contrasted way, it actually is very satisfying. And especially when you're doing something that has a lot of blue in the rest of the model, you'll see it just harmoniously sits into that color scheme, and ends up looking really, really cool. And then finally, we need that spot color. And so we're using green here, a sort of limey green, to contrast against the sort of pink purple colors. And we're going to put that on the gem that's on the weapon and the gems that are on the rib cage and so on. So just to add a little bit of that pop color there, that spot color, just to help contrast against what's already there, and help draw your eye to the center of the model. And so we're using that night blue mixed with a little bit of, there should be some sick green there and some Kraken skin, and colors I love to use all the time, and just building up in about 4 layers of tones, and you're highlighting towards the bottom end of the gem. So you're doing a sort of rounded highlight, and you'll see me just go through and just build up that color towards the Kraken skin, just on the bottom end of those gems. And so you've got that the darkest point should be at the top, and the reason for that is that you'll see me come in with the white at the end and just put a spot highlight right in the middle of that darkest area towards the top where the sun would be hitting, and that will give you your gem. And then finally, I don't think I show this on camera, but I usually go through with a satin varnish and just hit the gems with the satin varnish, just to help give them a bit of shine. So you can use a gloss as well, but I find the satin is enough. It just adds a little bit of extra shine to those gems and give you a bit of material contrast overall. And there we go, one Death Jester all done. Let's take a look. So yeah, you can see how it comes up. You know, it's using that limited palette idea to focus on the important aspect of the model, which is the face and the blend that we've got going on the cape there. And I think that does its job. You know, the neutral colors, you know, sit in the background and give you a sort of a canvas to showcase that color work that you're doing on the cape. And you know, and it still has that feeling of Harlequins. You know, you've got that blue going into purple and pink. You know, which is an unusual blend, and you know, you've got all those little subtle hints going on there without having to actually do the full, you know, checker patterns and so on. And you've got the alternating colors here on the pants and the jacket there and so on to help reinforce that idea, with a little bit of a pop color of green there just to you know, contrast against the pinks and the purples. So yeah, I think overall it's a pretty fun one to do. And if you're doing Harlequins, this sort of approach, whether you use this color scheme or not, you know, is a good idea to think about, to try to come up with that, you know, a sort of more streamlined scheme, so you can get your army painted, right? That's the point. So yeah, it's definitely something to consider, I think. So, you know, I'll leave a nice image for him at the end like I normally do. I'll do a front and back so you can see the blend on the cape as well. But I hope you've enjoyed this. Please hit that like button, subscribe button, it really helps me out. And I guess I'll catch you on the next one.